So the big question is this: how do investors like us who don't have a PhD in finance or millions to start investing, how do we grow our bank accounts to build real savings and retirements and yet still have the time to do what we really love? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. Awesome. Hey guys, John Booten here. Welcome to the Stock Market Secrets Podcast. Super excited today to give you guys a special weekend edition. What? That's so cool. I'm going to do some fun stuff at school today. I got interviews, so you guys get a special edition, and we're just looking at like a market recap today because the coolest thing that ever happened, and the summer semester ended, which means that we are now in Freeland. We got like 2 weeks to grind. First week, it's been amazing. We've got through about 3/4 of that Think and Grow Rich Master class. I'm so excited. I'm doing that every day. And then also working on the email copy for it, which is so cool. You get to deliver valuable stories and growth from it. It's just so cool. You guys have a ton of the programs, that we work with and that I love. And it's all based on this idea that you can expand your level of influence by using business systems and automation to have a much higher level of impact in the marketplace based on whatever it is you're doing, which is super, super cool. And so that's why it's like so amazing that if you can put up this upfront investment in your future through any means possible, that can be the fundamental basis for long-term growth. It's so cool. So today, there's a couple of things I want to cover. The first one is that would be the simplest thing that I think I've done on this bike. But we're going to this interview. So like, what's so crazy is basically like whoever gets the scholarship or whatever is going to be based on this one event. And so because of that, it kind of matters perspective, right? The growth, the same in sales, everything based on looks, right? And so I'm riding my bike today. I got my shirt on. I try my best with it. I can't really pull off long sleeves, but we're going hard. And the tie, got to cut it all off. And it's like weird because it's this question of suits versus t-shirts. I made a video about this a while ago, and it's still something that's really a fundamental basis of a lot of the thinking I do and a lot of the team building I do, and this idea of how you present yourself in the professional environment, and also, more importantly, the level of impact you desire to have, and then the way that you go about having that impact. So there's this idea of this one-to-one impact where maybe in like real estate and sales, you're like in your tux, you're in your suit, and you're just connecting with people on an individual basis to manage their needs, which is so cool. But for a lot of what you're doing, right, that's trading time for money, right? So, and I don't know, it just depends on the job you're in, right? You can increase the amount of money you get from time. It's the same thing with trading 90 90. It's freaking awesome, right? I love it. But it doesn't really matter like what you wear. You can be on your pants or you can be in, underwear. It doesn't matter. Because you're like, right? So it's this difference of getting out there and socializing and growing and expanding your mindset with new people in your life versus just like sitting there, right? And it's interesting because you can, basically, right, if you want to judge the marketplace value of something, all you do is look at the monetary returns that it yields. So, for instance, me, biking over this event and put it on, all my good stuff and growing hard, it's going to yield me about $1,000 if it all goes through. It should be sick in scholarship stuff. Versus me sitting on my computer, right, trading 9 to noon. Luckily, I was able to, schedule this on a weekend, so the market's not open. But it's this idea of like, should I be here? Should I be recording a course? Should I be trading? Should I be managing investments? Should I be working with clients? And it's all about this, like the idea of like trading off time, work, energy, family, relationships. And it's really interesting because so many people go and they start their own businesses. They start trading 9 to noon. And I personally worked with a ton of guys and they're trying to do like online businesses, which is super cool. And I got to figure out which brake. Okay, that brake is less squeaky. There's like a giant car right in front of this walkway. It's so weird, man. But hey, what are you going to do? And it's this idea that you want to look at the scalability and the leverage factor in your business and use that to maximize the long-term potential and yield of the efforts you do. So for instance, if I write like when I write 9 to noon, like I know that will yield me income for decades to come because it's got long-term fundamental principles of investment, of technical analysis, of fundamental tax principles, and just growth concepts for making a ton of bank with assets in the American economy. And so when I think of investing, a year of my time in something like that, it's for me, it's a passion, right? So if you want to write a book, it's really a lot easier if you're passionate about it. And so you find the area of expertise you enjoy the most, and you go all out on it. You freaking go hard. And a lot of people, when I initially published, they were like, "Oh, well, how many hours did you work?" Versus, the first $500, $600 in sales for the first day or two. On your left, thank you. And it's like, oh, how much you make per hour? And it's like, I'm not looking at it as an hourly investment because I know it's an asset that can appreciate in value over time. And that's a mindset that I think a lot of people glance over. And it's this idea that you're putting in upfront work to get that long-term return. And as long as you can master that concept and stick with it hard, you're going to have surreal success later in life by simply focusing on your individual ability to, on your left, thank you, to freaking crush it now so you have massive results later. So for instance, right, if you work super, super hard to trade 9 to noon for 2 years, and you can bring a portfolio from 25 grand to 100 grand, 200 grand, quadruple, 8 times it. Seen it happen so many times with all the people I work with, all the people I trade with, all the people I follow. They have these massive, massive account growth spurts. And then you think about, okay, well, how can you leverage that, right? So if you put that in something like a great example, right? I was reading Tony Robbins' book. Oh my God, I'm so excited to do a review of it. And I'll integrate it with everything I'm doing. It's awesome. So in the book, he talks about fixed index annuities. And with fixed index annuities, you're looking basically, it's like an insurance company thing. Thank you. And you'll set up this agreement where at a certain date in the future, you'll agree to start having payouts, and you start to get paid on a monthly basis, kind of like basically a pension plan, right? Where you have that retirement income. And at the same time, the value of your account increases based on an index fund. So for the S&P, it would base your value of your account on the S&P. And what they do is they take your cash and they just invest a boatload of it in call options on a very well diversified and risk averse investing pattern. So basically, they just spend more time investing, trying to just get in the market with leveraged investment vehicles and create higher returns through more active management, which you can do yourself. It just takes time and energy, right? And so they'll do it for you. And what they'll do is they won't actually tell you they're doing that. What they'll do is they'll give you 90% of the market upside, and they'll protect you against the downside. So your account value can only go up, and the value of your overarching payments when you grow up is based on that account value, right? When you grow up, it's when you retire. On your right, thank you. So it's this cool way to have upside without downside. Similarly, you can get a structured, on your right, thank you. Structured note, which is awesome. And it's the same thing, 90% upside, no downside. And it's this idea of insurance against future income, right? So if you have 200 grand, right, just as an example, and you're getting 7% average, because average is 9%, and then you're basically looking at a 90% upside, right? So if the average is 9% and you take 90% of that, it's about 8%, right? If you get rid of 10%, you're looking at about 8.1% average annual returns. On your left, thank you. So when you have those, about 8.1%, and that's increasing, annually on average with long-term statistics with no downside, right? So in reality, that number is probably larger, but it's just about that average growth, right? Conservative growth. On your left, thanks. And you look at 8% on 200 grand. So 200 grand, 10%, 20 grand, 8% is 16 grand. So you're looking at living on 16 grand a year for the rest of your life, doing absolutely nothing. All right, and you can increase that, you can invest it, you can compound it, you can do more and more and more. Obviously, you multiply that by 2, it's 32 grand. And now you're at right now, I think that's the average individual income by doing absolutely nothing, but maybe front loading 4 to 6 to 8 years of work at the beginning. And now you can travel the world, do whatever the frick you want for the rest of your life. That's pretty freaking cool. This is a concept, and it's also the idea of mini vacations, right? So looking at international housing costs, because it's generally much, much, much cheaper to live abroad than live in the States. and you can get like basically 10 times the housing for half the cost, which is super cool. And then there's like just tax advantages and food cheap, everything's awesome, and people do it all the time, right? And it's very well elaborated on. And for review, I'm so excited to do the book review on that. So it's cool because you're looking at basically this idea of where you are now versus where you could be with that exact same income internationally. And the cool thing with the stock market, right, is that if you're trying to trade stocks, all you have to do at a very fundamental, basic level is have access to a computer for just a little bit of time. It depends on how active you want to be. If you want to trade 9 to noon, obviously 3 hours. But if maybe you just want to manage your investments once a month, make like a trade a month, what's that going to take, an hour, 2 hours a month? And then you just look for scanners, find a solid company, make some solid trades based on technical analysis 12 times a year. That's pretty freaking solid. That's the basis of the 15% rule, and this idea that like you can just do a little bit of swing trading to have a lot of reward. That's powerful. That's growth. 15% a year. And you can think about, okay, well, what would your expenses be? Especially if you lived abroad, right? Where living expenses are maybe like 10 grand a year for like really good luxury. And then you're looking at the difference between your lifestyle now and working and grinding and going super, super hard, maybe like a 9 to 5 or something, versus this abroad lifestyle, which is super different, where you're surrounded by different cultures and using online income, businesses, assets to pay for your lifestyle, which is really freaking cool. There's just a lot of people in that space, and they're crushing it, which is cool. It's inspiring to see that because it shows them, like, dude, you got out. And especially if you have like overarching long-term goals, it gives you like freedom of thought and freedom, the liberty to go out and do you and crush it, because you can focus on exactly what is, going to get you closer to those overarching long-term goals, knowing that in the back of your mind, you can still live, you can still survive, you can still grow with the fundamental basis of the investments and the fundamental basis of finances that are rooted in assets, them investments in the American economy. I know people that do it with real estate. I mean, there's 1,000 ways, online businesses. There's like a million ways to make $1 million, right? And the idea is you just need to like find one. For me, that's pretty much assets with stocks, and I freaking love it. They're the best. I love them. And so, like, that's what I will focus on for the vast majority of the early part of my life. That, and I guess crypto too. Crypto you can trade and invest. It's really like, oh my god, crypto mining, dude, that income is super cool. But it's this idea that you want to master one thing and be a pro at it, and then create a very, very strong income stream around it, and sort of focus all your energies on it. And then, I don't know, like for me, I love growth. I love going and going and going. And so it's super huge to like always have, stuff going, because it's kind of like a muscle, right? Like for me, if I stop working out my brain, if I stop working out my body, right, my muscles will go away. So it's like same thing with my mind, right? And my drive, if I stop going hard, stuff flows away, and that's not me, right? I got to go hard. And so it's different for everybody. It depends on your personality, your charisma, your drive. I think most importantly, it depends. There's this concept I teach in the Think and Grow Rich course called the secret formula. And it's about an hour-long module, so I can't go into it in full depth here. But the fundamental basis of it is that you create a burning desire and passion for your future, right? And so you figure out a very simple set of steps, like exactly what you want, when you want it, your plans to achieve it, and then why you want it. And that's power, and that's growth. Because now you have the reasoning, now you have the plan, now you have the execution, now you have the time frame. You mix all these things together with a definite and set desire for money. And then you start to develop that money conscious mind. You start to develop this insight into yourself and your future based on knowing exactly what you want. Because I'll tell you what, guys, there's not a chance that you, at least for a vast majority of people, can achieve whatever it is you want if you don't have a definite desire. For me, that's a number. That's a number for a lot of people, because that number represents something to them. This idea of figuring out, what number would be your financial freedom. Think about your expenses and really understand how much you spend, right? And how much it would require looking at stuff like the 1% rule or the 10% rule your team market, or even just investments in fixed annuities where you're fundamentally shifting your asset allocation to have maximum returns and gains despite market performance by using overarching long-term index fund principles. Like, that was a pretty complex, but I promise you, it'll make sense if you read 90 News and you understand stuff. Like, it's so crazy to see all these different avenues and options, and it's inspiring to know there are so many things to do that, seriously, you can just go out there and push yourself to do exactly what works for you, go 100% on you, and that growth will come back, that growth will manifest. There's no requirement to invest in the stock market. There's no requirements for the asset class because it's open to everybody, right? And that's the point. And well, gosh, I hate saying that, and I hate thinking about this topic because it's something I'm super passionate about and something I really, really have a deep desire to change. With this idea that internationally, a ton of people are cut off from the American economy, and a lot of times it's based on this idea that, like, basically a vast amount of people just don't have the option to invest in American stocks because of stuff like international laws and specifically, there's requirements for most brokers to have a social security number, right? And if you're international, I don't have a freaking social security number. What do? Well, you have to work past it. But sometimes the way to work past it is like super sketch, right? And so it's this idea that a lot of people, and especially internationally, are cut off from American asset markets, which are historically pretty much strongest performing asset market, right? Like our stock market and other financial markets like bonds, derivatives to an extent, but mostly like stocks and equities and funds, and specifically like ETF indexes. Like, those are fundamental American investments that outperform a vast majority of foreign options. And yet so many people just don't have direct access to that based on, or at least direct access in a reliable way, right? So a lot of people, maybe they have to pay ridiculous fees internationally to get access to this investment class, which freaking sucks because now it's fundamentally shifting the workload so that these guys are working like 10 times harder to get the same return as everyone else in the marketplace, which sucks, right? And the thing that is, there's so many ways to change it, but the regulations are made in such a way that, like, the SEC is pretty strict, right? Because they don't want stuff like the financial crisis happening, and so there's this fear of like international intervention.
Want more stock market secrets? If so, go get your free copy of my best-selling book, 9 to Noon. You can get your free copy plus $11,176 of unannounced bonuses it took me years to uncover, completely for free at 9tonoonsecrets.com. Inside 9 to Noon, you'll find the top 38 secrets you can use to double your portfolio every 2 years and make upwards of 10% per trade daily.